Back on with big news coming in from the United Kingdom. It is Rishi Sunak versus Liz Truss in the race for who will be the next Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Penny Mordaunt knocked out in that vote. This was the final round today, the fifth round, and Rishi Sunak posted 137, so a big jump from 118 that he polled yesterday to 137. Liz Truss making that big jump from about 86 odd after round 4, going up to 113, and then beating or edging out Penny by 8 votes. Penny got 105. She went on from 92 to 105. Sanjay Suri is live outside Parliament. Wheels within wheels, lots of drama, and it was a contest that the UK will savour over the next 1 month, because they will both be wooing that entire Conservative Party membership of about 180,000. Sanjay.
Well, the really messy part of this is now beginning, because this is going to be, of course, as you correctly report, Rishi Sunak versus Liz Truss, but really it's a shadow contest between Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson. It's he who has put Liz Truss up as his proxy candidate. It has been his claim that he was undone by a Westminster plot among the MPs, and that he commands the respect and support of members of the Conservative Party and of the country. But speaking of the Conservative Party, clearly it will be Boris Johnson's aim now to try and mobilize as much support for Truss as possible. His aim, of course, his thrust is as much support against Rishi Sunak as possible. And so within just 2 days from Friday, the Conservative Party hustings will begin, where each of the two candidates goes and meets members of the party in order to secure their vote.
True, and now it becomes a race to 180, doesn't it?
No, that's not a race to 180, because we have passed that. The stage has moved from voting among MPs now to voting among members of the party. So we had 358 members of the parliament from the Conservative Party. That stage is now over. We are now on the next stage, and that is going to be a postal ballot among about 160 to 180,000 members of the Conservative Party, simple card-carrying members of the Conservative Party, who will vote by post, and that vote will close on the 2nd of September, and we will have an announcement of the Prime Minister, who the Prime Minister is, on the 5th of September.
So anywhere between 80 to 90,000 votes. So it's not a race to 180, but it's a race to 80 to 90,000 votes. Sanjay Suri, stay on with us. I've just got two guests with us. Gentlemen, Pranab Bhanot is with us. He's a columnist and councillor, chairman of the Chigwell Parish Council. And I also have Pandit Satish K. Sharma ji back with us, chair of the British Board of Dharmic Scholars. Pandit Satish Sharma ji, this is what some Bhavishyavani you called it, and you last evening when we were speaking, you said that Rishi Sunak would actually fancy a straight fight with Liz Truss. And this is the shadow boxing. Sanjay Suri also said the same thing. So which way does Penny Mordaunt now swing? And of course, Kemi, who was knocked out, her support. How do you see this panning out over the course of the next month?
Well, it's going to be hopefully a more sensible and stable, traditional sort of a campaign across the country now. Just to have a drill down into the figures, the Conservative Party, there are, I think, 63% are male, 37% are female. That's going to be a significant factor. If Penny can reach out to them and connect with them, that will be a very major element in her favour. One really interesting statistic, though, is that 40% of the Conservative membership is over 65. 40% are over 65. And the middle ground, there is probably about 57% who are between 25 and 50. So that's the vast majority. And between them, we have one other really important statistic, and that's 76% are solid leavers. And so these, I think, are the three elements which are going to come into play. Whichever of the two candidates manages to draw that grid and ensure that they're consistently speaking to those layers will, I think, probably command a bit of a lead. But I'm picking up a slightly different sense from the Conservative grassroots, shall we say. At this moment in time, there's a great deal of dissatisfaction, discontent, and I'd even go as far as to say upset that the membership is only being allowed to have 2 candidates. A number of chairpersons from the regional Conservative parties have written directly to the chairman of the Conservative Party objecting and complaining that they feel they have not had a fair opportunity to express their opinion and to choose their candidate. So there are a lot of things in the mix. The last thing is probably worth considering is that 80% of the membership is within what's called the ABC1 category. So these are the core British white, middle class, upper class voters who are going to decide what the future of the country is. And on the opposition grounds, lots and lots of people are going to start complaining that why should only 80,000 Tories, shall we say, select and determine the future of the country. But I must admit, I'm a little disappointed that they've taken that route. You have the rules of the game set out. Once the game is underway, you play by the rules until it's concluded one way or the other.
Correct.
So I think it would probably serve the Labour Party and certainly the left to settle back down and reflect on how they are going to meet and challenge this new Conservative Party with a new direction and vision.
Well, the opposition will make its noise, but the mandate still rests until the next election, rests with the Conservatives. They have an overwhelming majority and a mandate. So this was a fight within the Conservative Party. So their elected members will decide who their leaders will be, and their party members or their voters will decide who their leader will be. That's how the system should be. So there's no trying to change that just because the opposition wants so, or they believe that they want to throw in a mix. Before I go into Pranav Manoj, just a quick check of the numbers, ladies and gentlemen. Quickly, let's look at the numbers. So here it is. Rishi Sunak has now surged to 137 votes. So very clear of that 120 number out of 358, which would have kept him very comfortable. In the evening, I remember telling Sanjay, is he going to breach the 130s? And that's what, he's in the high 130s. It's Penny Mordaunt who actually slipped because Liz Truss played catch up. Sanjay had a very interesting take on that, so we'll go back to him on that. But this is how the numbers actually stack up right now. Now it's no longer these members of the British Parliament or 358 that matter. It's the voters of the Conservative Party, members, voting card holders of the membership card holders of the Conservative Party who matter. So let's take this question to Pranav Manoj and ask him. Pranav, are there wheels within wheels? Were there those who are perhaps Rishi Sunak supporters who wanted Penny out of the race because they would see a fair fight or a straight fight between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, because that works for them? And would you agree with Sanjay Surya, who's saying that this is shadow boxing? This is Boris Johnson versus Rishi Sunak that's actually playing out.
I know that there are many headlines about lending votes and, trying to have what we call the black arts of politics, where votes are being lent and votes are being taken away to try and have this 2-horse race between Sunak and Liz Truss. To be honest, I have seen no evidence of it. I think these are just headlines and the media making something of it. We'll never, I don't think, get to the bottom of what is actually happening behind the scenes as MPs go on to vote. It's very interesting you say that Liz Truss is Boris Johnson's, prodigy, as it were, against Rishi. I mean, one thing that has really come out in the various debates is actually people trying to keep somewhat at an arm's length from Boris Johnson and the Johnson kind of era. So it will be interesting to see now when this all goes to the membership. There will be all sorts of meetings happening across the country. I will probably go myself to 1 or 2 of them. How much engagement each of the candidates have with the word Boris Johnson, or are they going to try and just create a fresh perspective on it? I think the popular thing to do would be to almost see it with a clean slate, think about the future, try not to think too much about the Johnson era. I think Johnson did some great things, but unfortunately the past few months have made him slightly unpopular.
So how is ethnicity going to come into play here, Pranav? Do you see ethnic undertones coming into play? Because there are voices from the Liz Truss camp, and there is a concentrated campaign which is also being engineered against Rishi Sunak. So I'm asking you that before I bring Sanjay back in.
So, good question. I think what's really interesting, and I think some statistics have already been said, whilst Rishi Sunak has got 137 votes against Liz Truss's 113, actually, when the polling went out to the membership, Liz Truss is actually ahead of Rishi Sunak if there was going to be a vote tomorrow by about 20%. Now, the question is whether this is to do with ethnicity. I'm not sure. It may be, but nobody will come out to make that very clear. I think the key lines of fight are the economy, the view on taxation, the view on Brexit, the view on what happens in terms of trade deals going forward, and how we deal with this cost of living crisis that we have in the UK. So I personally would like to be optimistic and feel that actually the distinguishing factor between the two candidates is purely on policy, not on colour, race or ethnicity. But, you know, human beings are human beings. People like to see people who look like them taking various roles. So I'm sure it will play some part, but I wouldn't think it will be overly vocal.
But if there's a vote tomorrow, Liz Truss has a 20% head up against Rishi Sunak. So Rishi Sunak has his task cut out among the Conservative Party voters. Would you agree, Sanjay? Sanjay, can you hear me?
I think it's
Yes.
Satish.
Well, you know, I quite agree that, and we would certainly like to believe that any color or race element would be minimal, but by its very nature, that is not something that ever can be quantified. Together with that, there's another factor that's again in the shadows that will never be visible, that you can't put your finger on, that cannot be quantified, which is the Boris Johnson factor. And of course, when we had the debates, Liz Truss refused to answer the question I put to all candidates, do you believe Boris Johnson is an honest man? She didn't say yes, he is. They were again asked whether any would give Boris Johnson a place in the cabinet. She didn't say she would. So quite clearly, she is keen publicly to distance herself. But we are looking at a situation that has in fact created this situation, which is the departure of Boris Johnson, which he says, and certainly he sees, as precipitated by Rishi Sunak's resignation. Not just that, that could have been a difference of policy. The Boris Johnson camp see this, that Rishi Sunak actually mocked him, didn't just leave him by referring to his policy as fairy tale, etc. And it was announced, in fact, in so many words by number 10 Downing Street's officials that Rishi Sunak has been treacherous with Boris Johnson, who built him up.
No, if Rishi Sunak is so strong that he could affect such a big revolt against Boris Johnson's leadership, one man, if you could trigger that, that means he certainly has a certain amount of purchase among not just the constituency but also with the MPs. So Boris Johnson is actually propping him up as not just an able but a far more worthy adversary and perhaps a far more capable person. But is this question, who's got a better plan for Britain going forward? Is that going to matter? Satish ji, final word. I've just got a minute left. Go ahead, please.
It is going to matter, but just to confirm this notion of ethnicity, I can remember only a year ago where Rishi was the darling of everybody. Up and down the country, he was called Dishy Rishi. And it wasn't until the COVID crisis stuck and the economy really tanked that suddenly things started to go sour for him. He began to take responsibility for many of the problems that arose. So I don't think that will play a big factor. But here we have seen one decision, and that is the parliamentary party for the Conservative Party think that Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss are the best people to take them into a general election in 2 years' time. What remains to be seen now is whether the Conservative Party members decide on exactly the same basis. And I think everything that Rishi has lost is actually recoverable. Liz Truss is banking so heavily on the Margaret Thatcher factor. She's dressing like her, she's speaking like her, her speeches are very similar. So we're going to have an interesting summer whilst these two battle it out.
Well, we're going to look forward to a very interesting month ahead amidst the heat wave in the United Kingdom as politics also heats up. Thank you, gentlemen. Always lovely speaking with you. With that, we call it a wrap on this edition of The Right Stand. Zakar ready with brass tacks.